Hello, everybody. My name is Chris Landis, and I'm the author of this exhibition here. It's titled Las Vegas Pandemic 2020. And I'm very thankful to the photo groups here in Oregon, and also the New Zone Gallery and Photo Zone and Photography at Oregon, who've all sort of helped me put this together. And it's just been a fabulous experience so far. So I thought I'd just start out with a little introduction about myself, because most people don't really know what my work is about. And anyway, in the 80s, I got very serious about photography. And I started taking workshops and classes and doing a lot of research and that sort of thing. I just fell in love with photography. It was like magic in the darkroom. I used to say I love the smell of Dettol in the morning. And so I would go in and work for hours and come out with mostly black and white images at that time. And so what happened was, at that time, I was doing what I call working in the manner of. And so I was working in the manner of like people like Ansel Adams, Edward Weston, a lot of my heroes. And it took me a little while to find my own voice. And prior to getting into photography, I got a master's in history. And so at one point, I had sort of an epiphany when I put together my photography and history. And so I was interested in landscape photography and these wonderful places. And then once I realized that I could put together my background in history and all of research and libraries and that sort of thing, that I put together the two fields, history and landscape photography. And then I found myself that all the work I did going forward after that was really a combination of places that had a great human history, hopefully some importance to American history, to human history, and also every place that I work has a photographic history. So the places that I work, you can go and find what other people have done there before me, and that maybe years before. And so once I made that combination, the world just clicked and everything started falling together. So going forward from that point, my work has been about landscapes with an American history, with a human history. A lot of times they're abandoned, empty places that are lonely, that have oftentimes a tragic history and a sad history. But so that's how I combined the whole thing and sort of found my voice. The first big project that I started working on.
So we're going to stop the video here and let Chris actually talk about some of the projects that he's done, which were Manzanar, the Salton Sea, and
American battlefields.
And the battlefields. So why don't you talk about Manzanar briefly first?
Yeah, without going too much into all of them and the details of them, but so originally when I connected myself to the history of photography and the history of a place, and they became sort of amazing places with a history and a background, the story I wanted to tell. So a lot of times it's not just about a photograph, but a collection that really it's more about the whole body of work in the place and the people and all about that. So the first big project I did, I got interested in Manzanar, and that had a photographic history started out that was a long history itself, where you had Ansel Adams and Toyo Miyatake and Dorothea Lange had all photographed at Manzanar. And so I was attracted to that, and then saw the place that was part of the California landscapes that I traveled. And it was a lonely landscape where you had the remnants and remains of the people who lived there and the gardens that they built and the remains of the barracks and the cemeteries. And so I connected with the whole history. And there was also the pilgrimage at Manzanar that was an annual event where the people who lived in the camps came annually. And with that project and all the projects I do going forward, it became not only about the place, but the people who were there, to where it was important to me to get to know the people involved at Manzanar and at the Salton Sea going forward, and battle sites, and hopefully with the Vegas, that get to know the people that are involved. So it's one compact unit about the history and the photographs and the place and the landscape and the people. So the Manzanar was the first big one. That one got shown at a lot of great places. We showed it here at the Holt Center, and showed it at Japanese Historical Society in Los Angeles. So we had that exhibition. And then after that came interest in the Salton Sea, which again had a big, interesting U.S. history of the place. And so that connected, and so spent actually years going to the abandoned ruins of Salton Sea and writing the history, and had volumes and volumes of research on it, and put together the In Search of El Dorado, the Salton Sea. And sort of luckily, my tendency is to try to go right to the top. So I went to the Palm Springs Desert Museum. They were interested in the exhibit. And so we wound up doing In Search of El Dorado, the Salton Sea at Palm Springs Desert Museum. And then they wound up publishing a book on it, which is almost out of print, but there's a few available. So we did that. And then the San Diego Historical Society picked it up and did an exhibit there. And so now, actually, as I'm back into it and getting back much more into photography again after my work life, so we're doing that again. So I'm doing Return to El Dorado. So the sea's changed, the history's changed a lot, the people, the landscapes changed. So that's being taken up again to be another new book that'll be called Return to El Dorado, that'll actually combine the two projects. All along, as I've been doing things, I've been traveling to American historical sites that where I can combine the history of these battle places, from American Indian battle places, American Civil War battle places, and they're all rural, sort of sad, abandoned landscapes, but they have an amazing sort of tragic history that I think you can sort of feel the voices of those places, the landscapes of the battlefields of the Salton Sea, of Manzanar, that they all sort of speak to me, and hopefully through the pictures and the whole project and the writing that goes with it, that you'll be able to get a sense, not just so much about individual pictures, but the whole body of work and what the place is about, and the people that lived there and suffered there. And so those are the three big projects that have sort of been being worked on, and then coming along to the Las Vegas part that so we presented that here, and I don't know if you want to start.
Yeah, so what I'm going to do is switch back over to the video, and this will take me a second or two to queue up correctly, so bear with me. And almost there, hang on. I'm going to share my screen again and start the video. I'll actually start the video.
Published yet, that's just not out on the internet. And so that's all waiting to come, and will come soon. So all along, I kept those projects going. And what I wanted to mention also here is about Eugene. Eugene is sort of like a homecoming to me. Decades ago, in the mid 80s, I became friends with some of the leaders here in the photo community here at the Eugene area, Susie Morrill and Stu Levy, and other people here that I've actually run into after years that are part of this group. And I started going to the Ansel Adams workshops in Yosemite. They were a seminal moment in my life, meeting Susie and Stu, some of these people that I learned more about what I wanted to do in the future with photography. They taught, guided me, they were mentors. And after that, as I was doing my work with Manzanar, Salton Sea, Susie helped me get a number of shows here in the Eugene area. So I was lucky enough again to the first show that I had here in Eugene was a great opportunity. It was at the Holt Center, just across the street here in the Jacobs Gallery, I think it was called, at the Holt Center. So they did the full Manzanar exhibit as part of that exhibit space. So that was amazingly lucky, but that was back in the mid 80s. And so then after that, keeping our connection, being good friends, the next thing that came is that was able to do the next big project, the Salton Sea, at the, I think it's the Jordan Schnitzer Museum of Art. So we did the Salton Sea project there. So I was lucky to have these wonderful venues here in Eugene, a lot of good friends, and have this opportunity to show work here that's still continuing now. And so that's my sort of homage to Eugene and my great friends here that have done a lot for me. So what happened next is I was finishing the Salt Sea project at Nash Editions, and a friend there asked, he said, "So what's next, Chris?" And I said, "I think Vegas is next," and thinking what would be the next big project. So I started going to Vegas, trying to take pictures. I built a library, started my research on Las Vegas, and got a number of historical books, researched art and architecture about Las Vegas. There's some great scholarly books about Vegas. One is Learning from Las Vegas, another called The Strip, The Architecture of the American Dream, and there's a cult classic, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, that connects with that history. And so there's actually a fairly decent historical art literature history that goes with Las Vegas. So I started doing that research, started going to Vegas, and it just never clicked. Thinking back, I think one of the reasons it didn't click is there were too many people. Every place I photographed is basically empty or abandoned, or landscapes of sadness or sorrow or history. Even though Las Vegas had a huge history, there was a lot of people there all the time. So when everything got closed down because of the pandemic earlier this year, I started thinking, I wonder what Las Vegas looks like right now. And I was able to look, and back when I started everything, we had to go to libraries, we had to do all kinds of things. Now we can find everything online. I could actually see Las Vegas and sort of what it looked like. I can do research in a very different way. And so I could look and see that this could be an interesting place to go and check it out. So what I did is first trip, Las Vegas was completely shut down. I got my daughter to come with me, and we went, and I was a little worried because before I went, I didn't know what safety would be like, because it was really abandoned. Everything was closed. They closed all the casinos. They closed all the restaurants, shops, stores. On the main strip of Las Vegas, there was nothing. I mean, everything was still there, but it was all closed. There wasn't a bathroom open, a store open. Well, I take it back. What was open everywhere? They have a lot of CVS stores. And so the only stores that were open were convenience type drugstores, which was a blessing because we could get water when we were walking around. So, but there wasn't a bathroom, there wasn't a hotel, there was no place to park. So actually at first I called the police in the city and asked them what this would be like. And they said, well, it's very safe, but the first thing you got to worry about is where you're going to park. Because normally people park in the casinos or along the street or whatever, that's all shut down. You're not even allowed near the property. So the only place we could park was way off of the strip and then walk back. And at that, it had to be a hotel or a motel that was maybe a mile or so off of the strip, because everything was completely shut. And so we stayed at a hotel off the strip, walked in every day and started taking pictures. And there's, like I say, the only place we could eat was to have food brought in to the hotel. Even there's no food at the hotel. You had to either go take out or have it brought in. Everything was completely, literally shuttered. And so we started walking, and it was a surreal, amazing landscape, because here's this place. The thing that attracts me in part to this project is all the places here on this wall, all the places we went to are amazingly popular places. Everybody knows them. If you haven't been there, you got a picture of it in your mind, what it's like. And millions of people go there every year. Millions of people walk the strip, drive it. And most people that are seeing this or here today or wherever will have been there. Or a lot of times the spots that are millions of people or many of the people that are here may have stood in this exact spot. But now it's empty, abandoned, nobody's there. And so the thing that attracts me to this project is there are places that everybody knows, but hopefully the work will surprise people or maybe shock them a little bit and realize the enormity of this pandemic, that it could shut down a behemoth like Las Vegas that's run by billions and billions of dollars, and that could actually take down this giant for temporarily, but could take it down and shut it down, lock it down. And so what you see here are places that would have thousands of pedestrians, cars, things going on. The traffic in Vegas is so huge that all along the strip, they build overpasses. So I don't know if we'll show them in a little while, but all over Vegas, there's escalators that show that people can't cross the boulevard. You can't just cross the street. You have to go on overpasses that have been built. So really the only place to get one side to the other is to go up the escalator and over the overpasses, where we could climb up the escalators, but they were not operating, that they were basically closed off. And so at one time, they're normally full of thousands of people, but they were all blocked off and closed. And so you could get across. But when we were actually there, the streets were so empty that besides being, you can see absolutely like no cars. Once in a while, a car would come by. They would come by, but people would be skateboarding down Las Vegas Strip. Families with children would be riding, half a dozen people riding their bicycles, down the strip, riding scooters. There was just no cars. It was empty and abandoned. You can see that. Hopefully it's shown from the pictures. The other thing interesting, which I tried to replicate here on the walls, is every place you went at the casinos, shops, there were signage up to ask people to come back, apologizing for we're closed now, it's only temporarily, LED signs and neon signs saying, sending out messages. We have right here, stay home when you're sick. This was changing all the time. Then another one over next to it that says the best way not to spread it, and then one next to it says stay home. So all around the city, at every hotel were slogans, the typical slogan type thing that you see on television. We'll get through this together, all of that type of thing. So I wrote down all the different slogans or took pictures of them. If you look closely at the pictures, you'll see them. This one here, we had Rod Stewart's face frozen for I don't know how many months over the boulevard, but it says stay safe and well, we'll get through this together. So I took a lot of those things that was on the signage and put them on the walls here. So over there on that wall, it says stay safe, we'll get through this together. It was at Caesar's Palace. Here we don't have to be together, to stand together. And that was at the MGM Grand. Across from that is We Will Rise Again at the Stratosphere, and others like Stay Safe, Be Well at the Venetian. So the signage that you see here in the exhibit is not from my imagination. They're taken directly from the LED signs that were in motion in the empty Las Vegas. So before I went, I called the city hall and I called the police, because I always like to, with everything I do, make contact and hopefully I'll be making more with the community there down the road, but make contact with the people so I can know what's going on, particularly in this case, because a little bit worried about safety. So they assured me that it was completely safe. And actually there was as many as 2 police cars on every corner. One of these pictures shows the 2 police cars. They were all over, that the police were on bicycles everywhere, police cars, security guards. You couldn't take a step over one of the barricades or even lean over to take a picture by a barricade, or there would be security guards. I wonder how they were seeing. They must have had cameras or something so that they could see if somebody was starting to trespass or step over a barricade, which we tried to be respectful of it, but you're trying to lean over, get the picture. But anyway, if you just crossed it most slightest amount, there would all of a sudden be security guards swarming around, telling you to get back. They didn't mind as long as you stayed back, but there was security everywhere. So we felt very safe, but it also sort of emphasized the situation. So when we got there, just sort of repeating, we found an abandoned, empty city. The strip completely empty. It was apocalyptic, surreal. It was. I have a quote here at the beginning of my statement that by an author named Larry Scott that says, "If you were to imagine a horror movie when all the people disappear, that's what it looks like. You can't imagine a circumstance that could possibly cause this." So it was dramatic. It was empty, a place you expect to be full of life and people and bustling and all these things was completely empty, like some alien ship had come down and transported everybody away. Like I say, you always think of Vegas as a place full of life, but here with this close down, shut down, lockdown, however you want to call it, it was a place of, at the moment, of human tragedy. I'm not too much worried about the casinos, the billion-dollar, industry that's there, but this was epic for the people that lived there. Not that it's not like that all over the country, but it was huge in Las Vegas because such an enormous part of their economy is based on hospitality, hotels, gaming, restaurants. Majority of the business was related to the tourist industry and to that sort of thing. So instantly, all those people were out of work. And so it was a great tragedy that was going on then. So like I say, it's part of all the work that I did that for some reason I get interested that it's a place of great loss. And even though sort of for temporarily, it was like that here in Vegas, but it was big and hurt a lot of people. And they were just, walking the streets, not a lot to do, no place to work, no source of income. And so that went on. It's gradually coming back now. My wife and I went there a couple of weeks ago. The casinos were back open, but they were only up to maybe half steam. I don't care so much about the casinos as the people that work at them that hope that they can be, employed and sustained in some way. So they were partially open. The restaurants were again partially open, but everything was under, pandemic protocols, cleaning everywhere, masks, the cars had hardly come back, but they, it was many more, you didn't see empty streets like when you were there the first times. So then it gradually is coming back. The casinos are open, the hotels are open, the restaurants are open. You can gamble as long as you want to sit at a slot machine with plexiglass between you and socially distanced and wearing a mask. And so it's coming back slowly that way. The performances, the big shows that they have in Vegas, were still closed when we were there in October. And you have to realize that the shows sustain an enormous workforce, that it's not just the big stars that are performing at these venues, but it's lighting technicians and dancers and all the people that make the show happen. And so they've been unemployed. in, I believe it was June, they staged their own marches up and down the strip, you know, saying that we need work, trying to call attention to their plight, you know, that they're still all out and unemployed, and all these people that work at the different shows. So now it's looking like the shows are starting to open back up, that they're going to open them in November and December. But it's a problem because the big shows like Cirque du Soleil or the big theaters like at MGM Grand, those are theaters that hold more than 2,500 people. The rule says that you can only have 10% occupancy in the theater. So if there's a 10% occupancy and the theater is 2,500 people, the most they're allowed to put in is 250 people. And that's not very likely going to sustain, you know, a big production show with all kinds of, you know, well-paid performers and that sort of thing. So it's not looking too good for that industry, but they're trying to open it up anyway to keep it going again long enough until things open back up. So the shows are gradually opening, and I guess you could go to them. It'll be very and it'll be just starting up. I wanted to note a couple passages I have in the statement I wrote for the show, and I think sort of highlight what I think about Vegas or what Vegas is to some of us. And anyway, I have author Joan Didon observed that Las Vegas is the most extreme and allegorical of American settlements. Good or bad, nearly everyone has an opinion. After the party, Vegas demands answers to larger questions. Beyond the neon facade, what is Las Vegas about? What does it really mean to be what Hunter S. Thompson in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas called the heart of the American dream? It is an alternate reality where two sides of the coin cohabitate. Boom and bust, winners and losers, rich and poor, elation and sadness, renewal and decay, reality and illusion. Things refined and tasteless all collide. Promoted as Sin City, Vegas is a beautiful, glamorous, decadent, eccentric, seductive, over-the-top 24/7 adult theme park. Fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada is a new place relative to the places it copies. It is constantly reimagined, torn down, and rebuilt, a monumental postmodern city that literally mimics great historic, mythic destinations. The compact 4-mile strip is home to 150,000 hotel rooms, built into facsimiles of Rome, Luxor, Egypt, Camelot, Venice, Paris, New York. Screenwriter Jerry Maguire asked, why tour the world when all you have to do is visit Las Vegas and see all the highlights in one location? So those are some of the thoughts I had in mind while I was shooting this show. And what's coming after it is, because I'm interested in keeping this going, hopefully more exhibitions, more exposure on the internet. And most importantly, I've been researching how to get a book published. It won't be a large book, but a short book with essays, observations about Las Vegas, how, as people call it, it's the heart of the American dream, and to include these pictures and some hopefully scholarly essays about the place. So hopefully the book will be coming down the road, and you'll have access to that maybe sometime next year. And then what's coming next year is I have, as I've mentioned, from being out of things a while, I'm retired now, that now I can get everything put out on the internet. So the amazing thing that we have now that we can all celebrate as photographers is we have gallery walls on our internet locations and virtual exhibitions that we could create. So we don't all have to fight and battle and scrap, you know, for museum walls, put things up on, that we can go to the internet and all the decades of work that I have sort of hidden away in a closet right now can get out there, can get published on the internet, that people can see them. And so that's the next big project over the next year or so, to get all that earlier work back out onto the internet so it can be seen. And then meanwhile, I've been going back to the Salton Sea, taking what I call Return to El Dorado, because the first book was called In Search of El Dorado. So now the Salton Sea has changed quite a bit. It has a new history going on, and that we found lots of work in interesting places. So I'm rephotographing at the Salton Sea. Hopefully that'll be the old and the new book put together. And so that's coming. Then hopefully the battlegrounds, a lot of other projects. So that's what's coming down.
So let me get back to our live. I think that's the end, Chris.
Very good.
So a few more views of the show. So usually they say what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, but why don't you both mention your website and then give some other comments, and we can open it up to questions.
Yeah. The website, which is sort of the first elaborate website I built, it's ChristopherLandis.com. Luckily, years ago, I reserved that name, so it couldn't go away. And so it's ChristopherLandis.com. And you can see the entire show and the work and the Vegas work and statements and new work coming forward on the get on the mailing list to see all the new exhibitions that are coming up, and the book that will be on sale hopefully soon. So the website is a good start. It'll be growing and building over the next years. And quickly, before I move on to questions, I wanted to mention my travel companion, Mike Quinn, was from Cal State Fullerton. He's a teacher there and ran the labs, and we become good friends over the years, and he's my travel partner now. He's been at the Salton Sea with me, taking pictures in Vegas the second time, and just fabulous companion that you all need when you're out traveling about. And he's a good photographer, fan, so I wanted to mention him.
Did you mention what your website is?
Yeah, the website is ChristopherLandis.com, and it is you can get to the galleries that are of the Las Vegas galleries, and you can get to new work that's coming up. And so that would be the place that you can go for that. I also want to thank Hedda, who did the video, and she did a fabulous job and donated her time to come down and work on that. So I especially want to thank Hedda for putting that together. We were able to sort of show it in real life, in real time at the location, and show the pictures that way rather than just on a website or showing same time or something like that. So now we've got that sort of live, and so hopefully it can be appreciated as the show exists. So that's about it. And any questions?
Who are you thinking of for writing essays?
Well, I have my own essay that is important, and then also other people I'm thinking of. Another photographer friend is a fabulous writer is named Kim Stringfellow, and she's done a couple of books on the Salton Sea, and we seem to be we've been sort of friends over the years, but we crossed paths. Years ago, I did a series of photographs. Actually, was a show here in Portland, in Eugene, also on the homesteads, and we did a poster here that was the homesteads. Well, Kim also did her own big book called The Jackrabbit Homesteads. And so we seem to cross paths and have a lot of common interests. But then she also went to the Salton Sea and wrote a fabulous book about the Salton Sea and the homestead projects. And then I found out that she lived in Vegas for some years. So I'm hoping to connect with Kim in the near future and see if she'd be interested in writing one of the essays for it. And then there's other authors that are out there, particularly the authors of the strip, the Architecture of the American Dream, that they're still around and accessible, that I was hoping to connect with them and see if they'd be interested in contributing an essay or parts, segments from their books. And then there's segments from, also the authors are still around or may have access to other architectural writers that are from Learning from Las Vegas, which is a fabulous book on architecture. It's mainly about architecture, but it deals with Las Vegas primarily. So there's a whole field of specialty about authors on Las Vegas. So I'm hoping to connect with them, invite them to contribute essays or take essays from their works and put this as part of the larger book.
Seems like it could even involve some writers that could speak to the whole time in history for America right now too, with the COVID and all.
Yeah. It'd be good because the COVID is part of the whole thing.
Oh,
and the part of the big part of the project is that, you know, all the people that are affected by it, not so much concerned with, you know, the gamblers wanting to come back, but the regular folks that are there that are trying to get their jobs back, serving tables, you know, at the gaming, all the different folks, and particularly all the performers right now that are really hurt by the whole situation. So there's people there right now because it just came out so fast. I haven't had a chance to get involved with the community, but I've had a very friendly reception from the you know, people at the mayor's office and community offices and the police force. You know, so there's a lot of connections and areas to work on that, and also hoping to make, I always try to go straight to the top. So another straight to the top is trying to get in touch with Steve Wynn, who is, you know, big real estate magnate in the area, but he's also has a tremendous interest in art. So he has his own art galleries, which are, you know, mainly classic and, you know, historic type art, but wanting to make contact with whoever manages his galleries and art collections to find out about an interest there, to see about that. And then also made connections with the Neon Sign Museum. And so there's a lot of history there and people that work in the history that hopefully can, as things all pull together, they can be part of it as well.
Fascinating project, really, really relevant.
Because, yeah, it's relevant to our time. And I thought originally it was going to be very, very short term and that it was going to be over months ago, but it's not. It's going on and likely to go on through this year and well into next year. So originally I thought there was a big flame underneath me that said, you got to get going on this, but now it seems like there's more time.
I bet even the mayor of Las Vegas would want to weigh in.
Yeah. I'm not sure how they'll feel about it, if they'll be against it or for it. The mayor of Las Vegas is quite an advocate for the city, and quite an adversary to the governor, who put out the mandates that locked everything down. So she and the governor are very much at odds. And I have to say, which I'm glad you brought that up, of all the cities I can think of, Las Vegas has opened up faster and more than any place I can think of that still has a lot of people visiting it now. And so the mayor and the governor, even though they're at odds, they seem to recognize the importance of bringing the people back to work and trying to work something out to try to make it open up again. Not completely, but within reason.
So we can open up to questions from anybody who's viewing also. Make sure you're unmuted.
Christopher, so you were just saying that, it's opened up quite a bit, and the mayor has relaxed some of the mandates and whatnot. How's the spread going there? Is that causing more spread of the coronavirus?
I should have I apologize. I should have those statistics at my fingertips right now. Las Vegas is, which is one of the reasons it's been able to open up as much as it has, is that of the places in the country that Las Vegas has been very much, in not been strong in the spread of it. The amount of coronavirus in the state of Arizona and Nevada has been remarkably low. It's come back a little bit, but it's nowhere as bad as other places in the country. So they're being quite judicious about how they're controlling it, and the governor is taking a strong hand in making sure they don't go too far, but he's allowed it to open up a little bit. And I'm sure the mayor of the city would like to be completely open and would probably advocate that, which would be a bad idea. But the governor has been controlling their bigger desires. And right now the bigger push is trying to get the shows open, because so many people are out of work that the limitations of having 10% allowed in the theater, actually it seems like a lot to me, but they're going to try to open that up and allow more, but it's going to be a while before they go beyond the 10%, and they'll all be socially distant. But Vegas and the whole state of Nevada has been very low on the coronavirus scale, and hopefully they'll keep it that way with the measures. But the people that are running the city would like it to be wider open, and the governor would like it to be less so. So they've come to sort of a compromise, and it seems to be working because the spread has not been too bad.
Thank you.
So just by the way, I just looked up online about the situation in Vegas, and apparently it jumped from 649 on November 2nd to today it's 2,000 something. So it's definitely jumping right now. This is a per day thing.
Yeah, it's changing. Everything is changing as we go compared to
Absolutely.
to what it was a month ago. So now I would imagine that it's going to be accurate, that because there's more activity, that it's going to
Go up.
A lot more cases.
Also it got cold and people went inside.
Big time, right?
Yeah, right.
But it's still very much abandoned on the streets. But there's cars. But in the casinos and such, and restaurants, it's sort of like here. But in the casinos, they have plexiglass everywhere. However that works, that prevents people. I'm no fan of gambling. I'm not a gambler myself, so I'm not really sad by the loss of that. I'm more concerned about the different regular type folks that are
Do you think that it's
hurt.
relevant to do any investigating on what's going on, like countywide for support systems for the people? Or are you interested in
Yeah, I am.
interviewing
That-
any of the people
absolutely.
that are affected directly?
Yeah, and meet and interview those people.
Mhm.
And get to know some of the people and what they're going through. So usually with any of the projects I do, from Manzanar to the Salton Sea, a big part of it is getting to know the people that live there and how they're affected by the thing. And that right now it's been so fast and so quick that there's a lot of work to be done to get to know, a lot of the consequences that are going on, getting to know the people. But there's, a whole other project to go beyond that.
I wonder if they have any kind of support system. I mean, first of all, if there's a moratorium on evictions.
I'm sorry,
I wonder if
moratorium?
they have a moratorium on evictions, for all the workers.
I know that it hasn't been being enforced for quite a while, but
Yeah.
it's about ready to
Right.
possibly change. I think they may alter that, but Las Vegas, they have all their people that are put out of work, but also Las Vegas has an enormous homeless population.
Oh.
Enormous. You think of Las Vegas as always being wealthy and healthy and vibrant, but once you get off the Las Vegas Strip, it's a tragic landscape. That there's, people who are alcoholics, drug addicts. That the whole city is. Once you get past the main strip and the area of the casinos, it's a hidden place, and it's a very sad place to walk around. Dangerous.
Fascinating. It's such a fake environment.
It is.
As far as a landscape, it's so fabricated,
Right.
and it's been so affected by the pandemic.
Once you get past the strip,
But
it's sad.
you can put the humanity in it and
Mhm.
really see the faces of the
Right.
people who are affected. I think that's also interesting. I don't know
And
if it's of
on the
interest to you.
strip itself,
Mhm.
on the sidewalks of the hotels and particularly on the overpasses
Mhm.
and the stairways and everything, there's a large homeless population that
It
are
is
sitting there
cold there.
panhandling. Yeah,
Cold in the winter.
yeah, it's cold.
Wow. Yeah, well, it's a really relevant project. Fascinating. This is a fantastic start.
Yeah, long ways to go.
Mhm.
So hopefully it'll come along.
But Nevada and Arizona actually have fairly high case rates. They're like in the upper third of the country.
Is that recently?
Pretty high.
Yeah, that's- yeah. So
Okay, so
they have
it's,
not escaped at all,
it's trending.
whereas Oregon is in the lower
Mhm.
third.
Mhm.
I'd like to know city by city, because Vegas has been empty.
Yeah, they don't have city, I don't
Yeah.
have city data. I just
There
have
can't be
state
much going on in Vegas.
Well, they were completely shut down. So whatever jump they must have had has probably started since they opened it up. That,
Yeah.
that really until it was really through July that June, I guess, it was completely closed.
data. It's probably since they started opening
Right.
up.
And then things opened in July.
There's
And
a
so I
couple-
imagine it's been an
there's a
upward
couple
spike.
months lag time.
Yeah.
So any other questions from anybody?
I got
Quick
one.
question.
Well,
No, go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh,
ahead,
well,
buddy.
I was just wondering how, if Reno experienced the same level of shutdown, if you know.
It was a statewide mandate that the governor issued. So it was every place, even in the outskirts, because in Nevada, you can find gambling at gas stations.
Everywhere.
Reno, every place that had any sort of gambling was completely shut down. So for the time since the pandemic began and until really June, everything was completely shut down throughout the whole state. So Reno, gas stations, any place where you would have any kind of gambling or show or population, it was all shut down.
You couldn't touch those machines. You couldn't touch them without being
Oh, you couldn't.
disinfected in between people.
You couldn't go near anything.
Yeah.
It was shut down. Shows, restaurants, shopping, that you couldn't go into a mall or any place like that. So the shopping, every place throughout the entire state was completely shut down. So now back in Vegas that I've seen firsthand, because we just saw it during shutdown, and then just a few weeks ago, Terry and I went to try to see what it was looking like now. And it was very different, but it was still, I would say it was more vibrant than most places that you would see, which may be a mistake that they have that going, but they had, I'd say about half the restaurants open. The hotels were open, but again, you couldn't get any, room service or none of the normal hotel things were operating, but you couldn't eat.
Let's take some other questions.
Betty.
Yeah.
Betty.
Hi, Susie, Stu, Chris, Steve. I have a question. It's a little bit unrelated. I read that in Venice, Italy, the canals became clean and dolphins were actually swimming up into the canals in the city, and all kinds of animals were appearing in the streets and just lounging around. Did you notice a difference in the wildlife? Did you notice an influx of wildlife in Las Vegas, like I guess coyotes and roadrunners or anything like that?
I didn't in the city, because the city was still really a big city, but so we didn't notice any wildlife. But it's an interesting contrast that while we were there, my good friend Mike, his big interest was getting to Red Rock Canyon, so which is just not that far from Las Vegas, and so we actually went there, and there's quite a bit of wildlife there, road runners and snakes and animal life that were all around. But I don't know that would have changed much. But the state park there was also completely shut down, that nobody was allowed in there. And we just got in after they opened it back up. So it was an interesting contrast, seeing places that were sort of timeless, like Red Rock Canyon, and then places that are new and moving, evolving, with Vegas, and comparing and contrasting the two landscapes.
It seems like we're really going to have to address the issue of, are we going to open up the economy, or are we going to keep the general population safe?
Mhm.
And that is, the country's been divided about that big time, and it definitely gets into the political situation.
Right. Well,
And so I don't know, but it seems like a lot of people who gamble, there's a lot of older people that gamble, and so you worry about them going there and getting sick and then ending up in Las Vegas in a COVID unit, which they'll never get out of. It's definitely interesting, important, and
yeah, from my perspective, I'm not really an advocate of the gambling, or supporting the gambling. It's sort of where they're headed. It does have a very high political, and you have the two complete different sides. The mayor of Las Vegas that would just throw everything open 100% if she was given her choice, and then the governor, who they're constantly at odds, that is trying to control it.
by the way, I wonder what the influence is of the mob in Vegas at this time.
That's
that
sort of
old?
gone by. That's
that
old
gone?
school. It's not really run by that anymore. So much so that they even have a mob museum now there. It's wide open about that, and that's part of the history, but it's not part of the reality.
I remember one of the mayors had actually been an attorney for the mob, and he's the one that started all those awesome art museums too.
Near as I can tell now from the books I just listened to another new book about Las Vegas, and that the mob seems to be in the historic past, but it could be hidden. But I don't think it has a big presence now.
And they're probably more into drug trafficking and stuff.
Yeah.
Wonderful project, Chris. Just a tremendous presentation and project in general.
Thank you.
And an important series of messages within. And I'm very impressed and moved that you took this on.
Well, thank you. And also mentioning, because Steve was another good friend and mentor, I would say, from the Yosemite days. Been coming to Eugene more, but once in a while I'd stop by and see him in class. And anyway, Steve was a good friend and mentor that helped me in the early days to, see the vision going forward and keep it going. So I thank you as well.
It's a good
Thank
thing
you.
you're retired. You're going to need a lot of time to do these projects.
Yeah, now I'm retired and luckily I'm well off enough to keep everything going and keep the photography going and travel, and the kids are good. So we're able to keep the project going.
Another interesting point is that Chris had been working so hard for so many years. He had to totally retool his darkroom. He had to get a new printer, new computer, all new technology, learn how to use it, print the whole show. I mean, this was an amazing feat to just jump in with both feet and take on this COVID situation and becoming a working photographer again in earnest. So it's quite an inspiration.
Now, how the visitation in the gallery, how's that been going for your show?
It was really good. The show itself was open. It was kind of rainy, and then people were worried about the COVID, so I think the attendance was down. But I don't know, 100 people?
Yeah, or more. And usually it's a 6,000 square foot gallery, so we could just have open doors because there's so much space there that we're probably never going to get above 50 people at one time in the gallery during the day. So it gets a lot of traffic throughout the month.
And Eugene, and I think the big cities in Oregon in general are very mask compliant.
Yeah, it's a lot.
So people are very respectful about it here.
Everybody was wearing the masks. And the other thing, that as I was hanging the show for a couple of days, that the gallery gets a pretty good traffic every day. That people are coming off the streets. I was amazed at the number of people that are coming into that gallery, because it's much more than that particular show. It has many spaces.
There's probably 50 artists hanging work
Yeah.
at any one time.
And then the photography at Oregon people and the photo zone people and the photo shows that they have up. And so all their friends and family are coming. So it's a fabulous opportunity because it has their own traffic from their own clients. That people have different shows up. And so they're in and out all the time. People are coming in and out all the time from the streets. And some of the artists that not only great photography there, but the artists that are showing other types of paintings and sculptures and things, there's some amazing work there.
It's a huge art community.
There's a lot of it I'd like to buy and take home.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of very, very quality work there. It's a mix, but there's a good traffic there every day, and everybody's wearing their masks. You can, I feel very safe.
Yeah, and the other the side to that is it isn't packed because everybody's a little cautious. You get a steady stream in, but I don't suspect there's more than a half a dozen to a dozen people at a time, if that. And it's a big space, so it's a steady stream, but it's in and out, so it's not that crowded at any one time. So that makes it safer as well.
So yep,
We're
it
lucky
was
that
very
way.
good. Like I say, but just great place to walk around and view the artwork there, because besides the great photography, there's amazing sculptures and paintings, and it's a wonderful place just to spend an afternoon. It's
a new normal for us because typically openings at that gallery each month were about 1,000 people in one night. And, of course, we can't go anywhere near that. I think we're limited to 50 people in a gathering place at one time, which is actually working out, but it's wonderful that we've had the time to do a new work, that we have the level 2 status to be able to hold openings. And then we have volunteers that staff that gallery all the time, so we can have the steady stream throughout the month. And so we're adjusting to the new normal quite well.
It's 100 or less right now.
Okay, 100 or less. Great. Yeah.
Any other questions? If yes, we'll hear them. If not, it's probably time to wrap it up.
Yeah.
Great presentation.
Terrific.
It's great seeing some old friends, and Steve, great to see you. I hope we can connect down the road.
So thank you, Chris. Thank you, PAO. Thank New Zone for doing this, and thank you all for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Keep up the great work.
Okay. Hope to see you down the road.
All right.
I'm gonna turn.